the hottest coaches in the WNBA has just found herself on the unemployment line. Yes, you heard me correctly. She just won the final championship last year. And I'm telling you right now, this is a dumb decision by New York Liberty. Sandy Brondello is like that as a coach.
When the New York Liberty decided to part ways with Sandy Brondello, the coach who had just delivered them their first WNBA championship, the basketball world was left stunned. Coaches usually get fired after failure, not after historic success. And that's exactly why this move has sparked so much outrage, confusion, and suspicion.
The Indiana Fever need to figure out a way to get her right now. I'm telling you this for a fact. Sandy Brondello is what Caitlin Clark needs as a coach.
At the center of the backlash is Becky Hammond, one of the most respected voices in the league, who did not hold back when asked about the Liberty's decision. Her blunt words exposed something far bigger than just one firing. They pulled back the curtain on the inner politics and power plays that shaped the WNBA. Was Brondello pushed out because of performance? Or was there a deeper, dirtier agenda at play? And what Hammond revealed might just change the way people view the league forever.
Breaking news: after 4 seasons with the Liberty, including winning a title in 2024, Sandy Brondello is out as the New York Liberty head coach.
Sandy Brondello was not just another head coach passing through the revolving door of the WNBA. She was the architect of the New York Liberty's rise to power, the woman who transformed the franchise into a championship team, and the leader who brought home their first ever title in 2024. For Liberty fans, she was more than a coach. She was a stabilizing force, someone who had turned years of underachievement into history-making success.
This is crazy. Liberty fire head coach Sandy Brondello just 1 year after winning the WNBA championship.
That's why, when news broke that her contract would not be renewed after only 4 seasons, the basketball world was left in shock. How does a coach go from being celebrated on the championship stage 1 year to being cast aside the next? The announcement came swiftly and without much explanation. The Liberty's front office issued a polished statement thanking Brondello for her everlasting impact and acknowledging that she was the winningest coach in franchise history. But beneath the corporate language, the decision felt hollow.
Said New York Liberty coaching update. The New York Liberty has announced today the head coach Sandy Brondello contract will not be renewed for 2026 season. Goes on to say, we would like to thank Sandy Brondello for her everlasting impact on the New York Liberty, Jonathan Cobb stated, general manager.
Brondello had given New York everything they had been chasing for decades. Letting her go didn't just look abrupt, it looked suspicious. Becky Hammond, never one to bite her tongue, said out loud what many were already thinking. In her words, she didn't love it for Sandy. She pointed out that Brondello had just proven herself on the biggest stage, and to fire her after delivering a championship was not only unfair, it was almost unheard of.
This is crazy. New York Post. The Liberty fired Brondello, the winningest coach in the franchise's history, on Tuesday, making the veteran coach the scapegoat for a title defense that fell short of expectations.
For Hammond, who has walked the same tightrope of expectations as a WNBA coach, this wasn't just about losing a job. It was about what the decision revealed about the league's culture. Hammond's comments added fuel to an already burning fire. Fans began to speculate about the real reasons behind the move. Was it personal? Was it about the Liberty wanting a different image for the future? Or was it tied to deeper agendas that go beyond basketball? Suddenly, Brondello's dismissal wasn't just a coaching change, it became a symbol of instability, of how little security even success can buy you in the WNBA, and the timing only made things worse.
But if we're talking future, winning championships, consistently winning, go get Sandy Brondello right now.
The league has been under more scrutiny than ever, with controversies piling up on and off the court, from questionable officiating to accusations of favoritism toward certain players. The WNBA's credibility has been called into question. Firing a proven coach right after she delivered results played directly into those criticisms. It suggested that performance might not matter as much as politics. This is why Becky Hammond's words hit so hard. She wasn't just standing up for Brondello, she was calling out the system itself. The league wants to project stability, but decisions like this tell a very different story. And if a championship-winning coach can be discarded so easily, it raises a chilling question. Who's really safe in the WNBA? But as fans were still trying to process Brondello's fall, another incident on the court would soon throw the league into even deeper controversy.
Whatever it is, I don't give a damn. Y'all go get Sandy Brondello, bro. Go get her right now. I fucks with Stephanie, but she ain't no Sandy Brondello. She ain't no Sandy Brondello. Go get her right now, bro. I ain't lying. Go get her right now, bro.
While the Liberty's shocking decision to part ways with Sandy Brondello dominated headlines off the court, an equally explosive moment on the hardwood demanded attention. During a heated matchup, A'ja Wilson, the reigning face of the WNBA, a multiple-time MVP, and one of the league's most dominant players, found herself at the center of controversy after a play that left Indiana Fever guard Lexie Hull writhing in pain. What was supposed to be a showcase of elite talent quickly spiraled into a firestorm that had fans, players, and analysts questioning where the line between competitiveness and recklessness truly lies. The moment unfolded fast. Hull, known for her toughness and defensive grit, had been shadowing Wilson all game, refusing to give an inch of space. Wilson, frustrated by the physical defense, powered through the lane with her trademark aggressiveness. But instead of a clean drive, her motion came crashing down on Hull in a way that looked far from accidental. The crowd's gasp told the story before the replay ever hit the screens. Hull lay shaken on the floor, clutching herself as teammates rushed over. The referees quickly whistled a foul, but that did little to calm the chaos that had just erupted. Fans inside the arena were split. Some booed loudly, demanding harsher punishment, while others dismissed it as just basketball. But social media didn't hesitate. Clips of the foul spread across platforms within minutes, slowed down frame by frame as fans debated whether Wilson had simply lost control of her body or whether it was a blatant act of frustration. In the age of instant replays and viral outrage, Wilson's reputation was suddenly on trial. The weight of the moment wasn't just in the foul itself, but in what it represented. Wilson, long seen as the polished superstar and the safe face of the WNBA, was now being accused of something that could tarnish that image: playing dirty. And it wasn't just any opponent she collided with, it was a Fever player, part of the team that has already become the epicenter of league drama because of Caitlin Clark's rise. That made the optics even worse. For the Fever, the foul was more than a hard play. It felt personal. Lexie Hull, a critical role player who embodies the team's scrappy resilience, was left shaken, and her teammates weren't about to let it slide. Suddenly, the game wasn't just about points on the scoreboard. It became a test of loyalty, pride, and protection. And right at the heart of it stood Caitlin Clark, the rookie phenom, who has already reshaped the league's landscape, wasn't going to stay silent while one of her teammates was left injured. Her response to Wilson's foul didn't just spark debate, it turned the entire incident into a defining moment of the season. Because when Clark stepped in, the controversy grew louder, the emotions spilled over, and the league's biggest stars were now locked in a battle that went far beyond one possession. The foul on Lexie Hull might have ended with a whistle and a free throw on paper, but on the court, it was the spark that ignited Caitlin Clark. From the moment she saw her teammate hit the floor, Clark's demeanor shifted. Known for her sharp shooting and calm intensity, this time her emotions boiled over in front of thousands of fans. She didn't hesitate to confront A'ja Wilson, the league's reigning MVP and one of its most powerful figures. In that instant, rookie versus veteran wasn't just about talent, it was about courage, pride, and the willingness to stand up when it mattered most. Clark's body language said it all. She stormed toward Hull, checking on her teammate before turning her focus on Wilson. Teammates tried to pull her back, but Clark wasn't interested in staying quiet. The fiery glare in her eyes and her words, though drowned out by the crowd, made it clear she felt the foul wasn't just physical, it was intentional. For a rookie, still carving her place in the league, standing up to Wilson, who has become the WNBA's flagship star, was as bold as it gets. The tension didn't end there. Every possession that followed was charged with energy. Clark's movements became sharper, her plays more aggressive. She was no longer just playing to win. She was playing to send a message. In interviews later, she couldn't hide her frustration. "You want the game to be competitive, but you also want it to be safe," she hinted, carefully but firmly questioning how the league handles situations where players cross the line. For many, this wasn't just a post-game comment. It was a rookie calling out the system. Her defense of Hull struck a chord with fans. The Fever's young roster has rallied around Clark, but this moment showcased her leadership in a way that transcended stats or highlight reels. She wasn't just scoring points. She was defending the people beside her. That act of solidarity drew admiration from teammates and fans alike, proving that her presence in Indiana isn't just about ticket sales or national headlines. It's about building a culture of accountability. But not everyone saw it the same way. Critics accused Clark of being overdramatic, of trying to escalate a moment that could have been left on the floor. Wilson's supporters rushed to her defense, framing Clark as a rookie who hadn't yet learned the physicality of professional basketball. These differing perspectives only added fuel to the growing debate. Still, one fact was undeniable. Clark's fiery reaction changed the tone of the game and pushed the controversy into the spotlight. What might have been brushed off as a hard foul suddenly became a symbol of something bigger, a clash of eras, of rising stars challenging established icons. And while Clark made her stance clear in the heat of battle, the real explosion came later, when fans online took sides and the incident spread far beyond the arena. If Caitlin Clark's confrontation with A'ja Wilson lit the match, social media poured gasoline on the flames. Within minutes of the final buzzer, clips of the foul against Lexi Hull were everywhere. Fans clipped it in slow motion, zoomed in on Wilson's arm movement, and analyzed Hull's fall frame by frame as if it were evidence in a courtroom. The reactions were instant, emotional, and divided. Hashtags like #SuspendAja, #ProtectLexi, and even #Clark vs. Wilson trended across Twitter and Instagram, showing just how quickly the moment had captured national attention. For Clark's fans, who already view her as the league's savior, the foul was proof of what they've been saying all season. She and her teammates are being targeted. They pointed to the repeated physicality directed at Clark, arguing that this wasn't just about Hull, it was about sending a message to the Fever's rookie phenom. "They're trying to break her spirit," one fan posted, echoing a sentiment that spread like wildfire. On the other side, Wilson's defenders framed it differently. To them, this was simply basketball at its highest level. They argued that the WNBA has always been physical and that critics were overreacting because it involved Clark's team. Some even flipped the script, accusing Clark of being entitled, suggesting that her fans expected special treatment because of her popularity. The back and forth revealed not just a split in opinion, but a cultural clash between new fans drawn in by Clark's stardom and longtime followers of the league loyal to its established stars. Analysts and former players jumped into the fray, and their takes only deepened the divide. Some veterans called the play dirty and warned that unchecked aggression could ruin the league's credibility. Others defended Wilson, praising her competitive fire and suggesting that the controversy was The incident quickly became more than a foul. It was now a referendum on the WNBA's identity. Was it a league that protects its players, or one that tolerates recklessness in the name of competition? The firestorm wasn't just limited to debates about the foul. It spread to bigger questions. Why wasn't the foul upgraded? Why didn't the league release a statement? Why are certain players treated differently? Each unanswered question fueled suspicion, especially when fans pointed out how quickly the WNBA has punished other players in the past for far less. The silence felt deliberate, and it only made the outrage louder. Even casual sports fans who rarely follow the WNBA were drawn in. The viral nature of the clips meant the debate spilled over into mainstream sports talk shows, podcasts, and YouTube commentary. Everyone seemed to have an opinion, and each one added fuel to an already raging fire. But while social media raged, the league itself remained quiet. And that silence became deafening because it suggested something more troubling than one foul. It hinted at favoritism, double standards, and a system designed to protect certain stars at all costs. And that silence would become the next chapter of the story. As the social media storm spiraled out of control, the WNBA's response was nowhere to be found. In an era where leagues are expected to issue statements within hours of any major controversy, the silence from league officials was jarring. No press release. No clarification. No acknowledgement that the foul had even sparked outrage. For fans already suspicious of how the league treats its stars, the silence was interpreted as something worse than indifference. It looked like protection. This wasn't the first time the WNBA had faced criticism for uneven enforcement of its rules. Lesser-known players have seen suspensions and fines handed down swiftly for flagrant fouls, emotional outbursts, or off-court controversies. But when it came to A'ja Wilson, the league's reigning MVP, its marketable face, and the centerpiece of countless promotional campaigns, the WNBA acted as though nothing had happened. To Clark's supporters, the message was clear. If you're a superstar, you're untouchable. The silence became more damaging by the day. Each hour without a statement amplified the perception of bias. Fans pointed to the league's quick punishments for other players as proof of a double standard. Why was there no investigation? Why no upgrade to a flagrant foul? Why no suspension talk? Even media outlets began to push the league for answers, framing the controversy as part of a larger issue of transparency and fairness. Inside the Fever locker room, the frustration was palpable. Clark and her teammates had to field questions the league refused to answer. Hull's injury became a symbol not just of physical vulnerability, but of institutional neglect. For a young team already carrying the weight of a rookie superstar, the lack of league support felt like abandonment. And when Clark herself carefully hinted that player safety needs to matter, fans knew she was taking a jab at the league's refusal to step in. Meanwhile, veteran voices like Becky Hammond added another layer to the conversation. In her comments about Sandy Brondello's firing, Hammond didn't just defend her colleague, she highlighted the league's inconsistency. Its habit of making decisions that appear rooted in politics rather than performance. The parallels were impossible to ignore. If a championship-winning coach can be discarded without warning, and if a superstar player can seemingly commit a questionable foul without consequence, then who is really being protected in the WNBA? The longer the silence stretched, the louder the accusations grew. Fans accused the league of favoritism, of shielding Wilson because she was too valuable to punish. Critics said the WNBA was undermining its own credibility by refusing to address the obvious. Even those who defended Wilson as a competitor began to admit the league mishandled the optics. In trying to protect its image, the WNBA only deepened the cracks in its foundation. And as outrage mounted, one truth became unavoidable. The foul itself was no longer the main story. The story was the league's silence, its refusal to enforce fairness, and the perception that certain players and coaches were dispensable while others were untouchable. This was no longer about one play. It was about the integrity of the league itself. To truly understand why the foul on Lexi Hull and the WNBA's silence struck such a nerve, you have to look at the force reshaping the entire league, Caitlin Clark. From the moment she stepped onto a WNBA court, Clark wasn't just another rookie. She was a phenomenon, a walking headline, and the reason ticket sales, merchandise, and TV ratings exploded overnight. Her presence didn't just boost the Indiana Fever, it altered the balance of power across the entire WNBA, and that's exactly why every incident involving her or her teammates carries weight far beyond a single game. Clark has been the lightning rod for both admiration and resentment. For Fever fans, she represents hope and legitimacy. A once-in-a-generation talent capable of dragging a struggling franchise back into contention. For critics, especially some veterans who have spent years fighting for recognition, Clark's instant stardom feels like a spotlight stolen. When a rookie garners more attention than multi-time All-Stars, egos are bound to clash. The foul on Hull wasn't just about physical play, it was also about the growing tension Clark's presence has created. Inside the Fever locker room, teammates like Kelsey Mitchell have praised Clark for how quickly she embraced her role. Mitchell even admitted that Clark changed the dynamic of basketball in Indiana, opening doors for players who had been grinding for years. That kind of acknowledgement shows Clark's impact isn't limited to her scoring. She's elevated everyone around her, forcing the league to recognize the Fever as more than just another rebuilding team. But elevation comes at a cost. And that cost is the resentment of rivals who now see the Fever as the league's centerpiece. Veteran stars like A'ja Wilson are caught in the middle of this cultural shift. For years, Wilson was the unquestioned face of the WNBA. Now, Every highlight, every headline, and every viral clip seems to orbit around Clark. That's not to say Wilson or others can't coexist with her, but the tension is unavoidable. On the court, that tension manifests as harder fouls, more aggressive play, and the subtle but undeniable sense that veterans want to remind Clark and her teammates who really runs the league for Clark. The foul on Hull and her fiery response became another chapter in a season defined by challenges. Every game has been a test, not just of her skills, but of her resilience. She's been shoved, targeted, and scrutinized in ways no rookie should have to endure. Yet, instead of backing down, she's leaned into it, using every slight as motivation. That leadership is why Fever fans rally behind her so fiercely, and why even her critics can't ignore her influence. The Caitlin Clark factor is simple. She's too big to ignore, and that makes every clash involving her feel monumental. When Wilson's foul left Hull shaken, it wasn't just about Hull's injury, it was about the league's biggest veteran colliding, literally and figuratively, with the league's brightest new star. And the fallout only intensified when the focus shifted squarely onto Wilson herself. For years, A'ja Wilson has been the gold standard of the WNBA, a multiple-time MVP, a champion, and the centerpiece of league marketing campaigns. She has carried the image of dominance and professionalism. She wasn't just a star on the court, she was the face of the league itself. But with one controversial foul against Lexi Hull, that carefully crafted image came under fire. Suddenly, Wilson wasn't being discussed for her accolades or leadership. Instead, she was being accused of insecurity, of lashing out physically in a moment of frustration, and of trying to send a message to Caitlin Clark in the Indiana Fever. Every angle of the foul was dissected. Analysts debated whether Wilson had lost her balance or if it was deliberate retaliation for being hounded defensively. Critics argued that Wilson, threatened by the attention Clark was receiving, let her emotions override her judgment. On the other hand, her defenders insisted she was being unfairly villainized, that the physicality was part of the game, and that her status as the league's biggest star made her an easy target for criticism. This clash of perspectives placed Wilson under a microscope like never before. What made the situation even more complicated was the narrative swirling around her role in the league's shifting landscape. Wilson has long been seen as the WNBA's crown jewel, the one the league leaned on for visibility and promotion. But Clark's arrival disrupted that balance. Overnight, headlines that once belonged to Wilson were dominated by a rookie. Ticket sales and TV ratings were attributed to Clark, not to the established champions who had been carrying the W for years. For Wilson, whether she admitted it or not, the pressure was real. The foul, on Hull, intentional or not, became a symbol of that growing tension between the old guard and the new wave. The backlash also exposed how fragile reputations can be. Wilson had always been portrayed as the competitor who plays with passion. But now, that same passion was being reframed as recklessness. The same aggression that once made her unstoppable was suddenly being painted as dangerous. Fans who once celebrated her dominance were now questioning her integrity. And while Wilson's supporters defended her fiercely, the mere fact that the debate existed showed how quickly public opinion can shift. For Wilson personally, this was a defining moment. Would she double down on her competitive edge, brushing aside the criticism as noise? Or would she feel the need to repair her image, presenting herself as the victim of overblown narratives? Either path carried risks. Staying defiant could further alienate new fans who already viewed her as the league's enforcer. But softening her approach could make her appear less authentic, less like the player who built her career on intensity. What's certain is that the incident forced Wilson into a spotlight she didn't control. Instead of celebrating her MVP-level play, the conversation revolved around whether she had crossed the line. And as that debate raged on, the bigger picture loomed. This wasn't just about Wilson's reputation. It was about whether the WNBA itself could maintain credibility in the face of growing controversies. The WNBA has always prided itself on resilience, but the combined shock of Sandy Brondello's firing and A'ja Wilson's controversial foul against Lexi Hull has exposed fractures that can't be ignored. These aren't just isolated incidents. Together, they paint a picture of a league struggling with its identity, its leadership, and its credibility. For fans, players, and coaches, the question now is clear. Where does the W go from here? Brondello's firing proved that even success offers no protection. A coach who delivered a championship and cemented her place in franchise history was let go without hesitation. That decision didn't just unsettle coaches, it rattled players too. If winning isn't enough to guarantee security, what does that say about loyalty and fairness within the league? And when Becky Hammond openly criticized the Liberty's decision, she pulled back the curtain on a reality the WNBA would rather keep hidden. Decisions aren't always about basketball. They're about politics, optics, and agendas. Then came Wilson's foul, which shifted the conversation from front offices to the hardwood. The play itself may fade from memory, but the fallout exposed a league-wide double standard. Fans saw how quickly punishments come down for role players, yet how slowly, or not at all, they arrive for stars. When the WNBA chose silence, it confirmed the suspicion that not all players are treated equally. That kind of perception is poison for a league trying to grow its fan base. If fairness is sacrificed to protect marketable names, trust begins to crumble. The Caitlin Clark factor only magnifies the stakes. Her meteoric rise has brought unprecedented attention, money, and viewership to the WNBA. But it has also created tension with veterans who feel overshadowed and fans who are split between defending the old guard and embracing the new. Every hard foul, every viral clip, every questionable call involving Clark becomes bigger than the moment itself. It becomes a referendum on the league's future. Is the WNBA ready to embrace the next era, or will it resist change to protect its established stars? What's at risk here is more than image. The WNBA is at a crossroads. Mishandling controversies like Brondello's dismissal or Wilson's foul could alienate new fans just as quickly as they arrived. For years, the league has fought for mainstream attention, and now that it finally has it, every move is under the microscope. Transparency, accountability, and fairness aren't optional anymore. They're essential for survival. The WNBA's future depends on whether it can rise above its own politics and protect both its integrity and its players. If it continues to operate in shadows, punishing some while shielding others, it risks turning potential supporters into critics. But if it learns from these moments and proves that no one coach or player is above accountability, it has a chance to strengthen its foundation. Because ultimately, this isn't just about Sandy Brondello or A'ja Wilson. It's about whether the WNBA can build a future where success is rewarded, safety is prioritized, and credibility is never in question. The past few weeks have revealed more about the WNBA than any single season highlight could. Sandy Brondello's abrupt dismissal after bringing New York its first championship showed that even winning isn't enough to shield you from the league's shifting agendas. A'ja Wilson's foul on Lexi Hull and the league's silence that followed exposed a double standard that fans can no longer ignore, and through it all, Caitlin Clark has become the lightning rod, forcing the WNBA to confront questions about favoritism, fairness, and its own future. Becky Hammond's blunt defense of Brondello wasn't just about one coach, it was a warning shot. If the league doesn't start protecting its credibility, it risks losing the trust of the very fans who've given it unprecedented attention. The WNBA is at a turning point, and the decisions it makes now will decide whether it grows stronger or cracks under its own contradictions.